The Machinewise Maryn is one of the earlier knives and is probably the first real Balisong that Machinewise made that actually was of notable interest. Yes, there are predecessors like the Delta 50 and 60 and but frankly those are more weird oddballs. The Maryn was like, "Oh, this is good." Um, it is titanium handles and a steel blade. It is S35VN and it clocks in at 4.34 ounces. Uh, in short, Maryn's fucking gas. It's good. Uh, this is discontinued. I guess Dalen at the time is now more than just Dalen at Machinewise. Dalen wanted to step away from the Maryn and make some new, cooler things. He made the Seraph, which is one of the best knives ever fucking made. He made the Prisma, which was sort of known as the square in for time because there's the Tie Maryn, which is this, and there's the Maryn Light, which is aluminum. And the Maryn Light is basically what is very similar to the Prisma Pro now. So yeah, also I guess before the Prisma Pro, there's the Prisma V1, which is the square one, the Prisma V2, which is a lot like the Prisma Pro, but 6061 aluminum, and now there's the Prisma Pro, which is 7075. If you look at my channel earlier when I talked about the Prisma Pro, it's actually a V2 with the 6061 handles. But that's not my fault. That's before Machinewise locked down the names and actually was like consistent with shit. So anyways, Maryn discontinued, and I was wondering how good could this possibly be. The handles look kind of simple. They're not necessarily as interesting as I would argue either the Sliff T handles or the Seraph or the Opus handles. How good could this be? And the answer is, oh shit, this good. I've already talked about the Maryn blade several times. The Maryn blade also is a lighter blade than the Seraph blade. I have not tried the Leaf blade, and frankly, I don't really like how it looks. But the Maryn blade is supposed to be very similar to the Trainer, the Prisma Trainer blade, and so like they're pretty comparable. I actually prefer how the Maryn blade looks compared to the Opus blade, and the Opus blade, while is also a similar shape and design, is significantly heavier and has a way more tip weight. So they're not really comparable, considering that the Seraph blade is lighter than the Opus blade, and the Maryn blade is lighter than the Seraph blade. Anyways, let's talk more about this overall flipping experience. It's got a bit of a ring to it. Hello. There we go. And this being one of Machinewise's heavier knives, it definitely just carries momentum differently. Considering that the only handles that are comparable in weight are the Sliff T, which to me feel much bulkier and arguably squarer, whereas these are nicely rounded and chamfered. I think, oopsie, sorry about that. There's also jimping, but it's pretty minimal. The jimping on current knives are definitely deeper, but it's not that different. And it's got a nice ring to it. I will also say that this Maryn does not have the best tolerances ever. Like, yeah, there's a little bit of play. It's not terrible, but no tap, some play, and a precision tune would be really nice. I would certainly make this feel even better. And I also tried the Maryn handles with an Opus blade, and that felt like a match made in heaven because of how hefty these titanium handles were with how hefty the blade was. It was like a really beautiful balance. This fans neutrally, but it is arguably more handle bias than it's letting on, because I just know comparison wise that like what actually feels neutral is the Opus blade with the Maryn handles, and so the Maryn blade with the Maryn handles feels more like it fans neutrally. At least to me, it fans neutrally. Albeit maybe a little handle bias, but it doesn't wobble to me like a really handle bias knife. Maybe a little bit of wobble, not on like paying extra attention to it, but like it doesn't have as much blade carry with the momentum, and it's oopsies, holy shit. Oh, what's interesting else about this Maryn, I will make clear, is that this Maryn is sharpened. It's actually quite sharp. This Maryn is sharpened by someone. I don't know who, and I don't know when, but a previous owner, maybe not the person directly before me, but someone had this knife sharpened, and unfortunately, there's like some weirdness on the bevel. It's like a little hard to see. Like you might be able to see at the tip. It's like maybe slightly rounded. I don't know why it looks scuffed like that. That I don't think was there before. Oh, maybe it is. But yeah, it's like a little bit awkward looking and a little bit rounded in places. Frankly, I think as far as the sharpening job goes, it's just kind of fine, but it's sharp and it's nice. This is certainly sharper than most Machinewise knives. And yeah, Maryn blades aren't in production anymore, but like frankly, when I'm not directly looking at the bevels and some of like if I'm not like scrutinizing it, it doesn't really affect me. I don't really think about it. I'm not like, oh no, it's ruined. This piece of art is ruined. No, it's good. It still flips good. It feels good. It doesn't feel different from another Maryn blade, and I don't know. So like, the Maryn itself is certainly a hefty knife, but mostly in the handles, less so in the blade. But because obviously the Maryn is on the Maryn platform, even though the Maryn is discontinued, if you have tie Maryn handles, you can put whatever the fuck blade you want. And I think that the Opus blade feels particularly really fucking good. I've not tried a Seraph blade because I don't have a Seraph V2 blade. But I would probably say that the Slifty blade, I'm not crazy about. I feel like the Slifty blade has the least. It's like the least carry on the heaviest handles, and the Maryn beats that out in the sense that the Maryn blade I think is heavier than the Slifty blade, or at least it feels better distributed. Frankly, I think obviously I have no control over what Machinewise does, but I think the Machinewise team could and possibly should bring the Maryn back. Maybe a Maryn V2. I don't know what they would need to change. I think jimping, deeper jimping, pretty straightforward. I think that at least I've not flipped the Maryn Light, but it looks like the Prisma Pro, and the Prisma Pro probably covers that base pretty well. But I would say that the Slift T does not cover the Maryn's spot in the lineup. The Seraph and the Opus also just don't because they're not nearly as heavy. But the Slifty just feels different, and it's more of a successor of the Delta 50 and 60 than the Maryn tree. It's more like they're like kind of an off branching, like a parallel branch. And so I personally like, here's the situation. I've talked about the Opus, and I think the Opus handles are like, in my opinion, just not as good as the Seraph handles, and they cost the same. And the blade can stay, but I don't have strong feelings about the Opus handles. They're fine. If I had to do a Faustian bargain in order to bring the Maryn handles back in exchange for the Opus handles, I would do that. I would do that because to me the Opus and the Seraph are similar enough that I don't really feel like the Opus brings enough to the table that isn't already there. And like, sure, you could argue that it is. There's grip, whatever. And the Opus was a successor to the Seraph, and is arguably the true successor of the Maryn, as you can see by the blade, and like the handles have the whole pattern. But it's just so much lighter, and it's just, I don't know. The Opus, I wouldn't say it's Triton syndrome, where like Triton fits in this niche of why would you buy it? It's more expensive than a Mako, and it's cheaper than a Squid Trainer. But to me, the Opus at least just is not as interesting. To me, it just feels like not as good as the Seraph. And now that you can just build your own Seraph O in the Build a Knife Workshop, I think that the Maryn has a brilliant spot. I think the Maryn handles. I think they would do well. I think they could, if they came back, it would be really nice. They've got a nice speed channel. They sound. I don't know. I'm sure there's like a slight thing that they could do, but a Maryn V2 would be so cool. Maryn blade, to me, honestly, I love the Maryn blade. It is, in my opinion, I would say my favorite Machinewise knife in terms of looks and flipping. The Seraph blade maybe is a better flipper, but it's a pretty straightforward drop point. Nothing too wild in terms of how it's designed, whereas the Maryn is distinct. You see a Maryn blade or an Opus blade or the Prisma Trainer, like you can recognize that's a Machinewise knife for sure, without a doubt. Seraph blade and the Swift T blade are like not like ugly or boring, but they're pretty standard. And I don't know. I think the Maryn blade's fucking sick. So, frankly, while I don't think that the Maryn blade on the Maryn handles is the best configuration for these two individual pieces, holy shit! If they brought it back, that'd be so cool. It would be so fucking cool. It's like, I don't know personally. Like, I know that some people really like the Slifty. I like the Slifty enough. I like the Maryn more. I don't know if they would be competing against each other. You could argue that they would be. I mean, I guess you could also argue that the Opus is competing with the Seraph, but like, I don't know. Personally, I like the Maryn handles more than the Slifty. And if they're more expensive than the Slifty, then of course the Slifty will still have its spot in the lineup. And the blades, oh my god, please bring the Maryn blades back. They're so good. I love them. They're my favorite. And maybe it would lower the value of my Sarin, but I don't give a fuck. I'm never selling that. That's one of my forever knives. That's a lifer. So, yeah, that's my opinion. Machinewise may have sunsetted the Maryn forever, for all we know. Maybe we'll see, but I think it would be really great. Interestingly, I was trying to think of like what has Machinewise been up to, because in terms of Balisongs, there hasn't really been much news outside of getting the knife customization system off the ground, and it seems to be doing extremely well. And they were very clear. They're like, hey, if we do this, there will be a lot more freedom in building your knife however you want instead of having to wait for a drop in a configuration that you want. But it will take much longer for knives to drop. And some people were, they did care about that. But I think for the most part, people were like, I will wait longer for what I want and not having to like snipe a drop, because yeah, drops are competitive. You had to like, oh shit, Friday at 2 p.m. or whatever the fuck, and you had to just get in on that and hope that you could get the knife that you want, because they would tease what they were selling. So besides that, they have been making pens. I think it was called the Rota. They made a titanium pen, a very expensive titanium pen. My pen collecting friend, it is like definitely more expensive than his most expensive pens, but for Balisong makers or Balisong people, they're like, yes, I will buy this expensive pen. And not to say that the pen was overpriced. It's just expensive, something's going to be expensive without it being overpriced. And now they're making a folder, and I don't know what the folder is called, but it seems to be a pretty simple folder in terms of like the action, and it can free swing. But it has a lock, and it's pretty minimalistic in design, and frankly, I think Machinewise is in a stable enough position to kind of fuck around and find out in terms of their product development, which I think is cool. They're not really hard pressed to do things, but I'm just saying, if you need what's the word, like a showstopper, bring Maryn V2. Maryn V2 handles. Just bring the Maryn blade back. That's my 2 cents. Maybe I'm fucking stupid. Let me know in the comments. But these are my thoughts, and this is for me. But comment your thoughts on the Maryn. What do you think? How do you think about? I don't know. Have you tried other configurations with Maryn handles? Maybe the Maryn Light. I have not tried the Maryn Light, but if you think the Maryn Light is actually significantly different from the Prisma Pro, let me know that too. And like this video. Subscribe, check out my other videos. I have the Maryn unboxing, I have the Maryn with the Opus blade, I have so many videos on various Machinewise configurations, just because every blade works on every handle. There's a lot of fun to look at. I don't know why I said it like that, but anyways, happy flipping, and have a good one. Subscribe.